small to mid-size and PE-backed companies are probably the right fit. That's what I would say is in our wheelhouse. But we work for some large companies. Believe it or not, though, the large companies, like we said earlier, they have more historical data than anybody, and it always needs to be cleaned up in some form or maintained in some form. But those would be, the small to mid-size and PE-backed startup type companies would be what I would say is in our wheelhouse. For example, we have a client that we've had for 5 years, and they've bought 2 assets during that time. First one was about 250 wells, and then the second one went from like 1,000, and they kept adding more just to that little pieces, and they're up to around 2,300, 2,500 wells, and they've benefited from it. They've benefited not only from the cost savings, in everything we've said earlier about the software, the reduced man hours that they have to worry about trying to manage somebody, just all the way to making their land payments that, they don't have to stress or worry over. I think that's something that's not talked about either is the stress of maintaining something when you're, as Brandon mentioned earlier, when you're trying to grow it. We take that stress away.
Yeah. And Mike brought up a great point in the very beginning of this. Even those larger companies, that sometimes your data isn't where you want it to be. And we can certainly help out with that and formulate a plan based on what you want to do if you're a larger company. We're not asking you to outsource your entire accounting department or DO department, lease records department. But if you need help, if you realize that you need help for a period of time, I call it project work, we can certainly help out with that. But ultimately, most of our clients are that small to mid-sized, usually private equity backed companies that are trying to keep G&A low or looking to potentially flip it in 2, 3, 4, 5, 7 years. We don't see as much as that, and that's a whole other conversation we get into as far as industry. But back in 2012 to 15, you saw a lot of those PE-backed companies that are wanting to flip in 3 to 5 years. We worked for a lot of them. One of the biggest names, Felix Energy. Now you're seeing these private equity groups come in with a more long-term approach. They're looking at production and the value of production, keeping a longer-term book of assets. So it's kind of changed a little bit, but those are good options for us too, because if you're looking for long-term, it's important to be focused on producing your wells at the best rate that you can, and you're able to focus on that a little bit more when you're outsourcing.
And, we've talked about from an outsourcing standpoint of being, your lease records, your division order, your accounting, and maintaining that for them on a monthly basis. And kind of what we're talking about here with, some of these other companies, they don't always need that. Some of these companies have been around for a while, and they've, they already have their own systems and in place and things like that. And they just need help cleaning historical stuff up. And we do that. We, for example, we had a client, we did that for 2 years, and every time we had a meeting, it was very grateful for the work we were doing, because they just didn't have the manpower to do that. And it's easier when you can contact an ARI that does it every day, and they know what to do to clean it up. And that's what, so it's not just about maintaining it from a production standpoint. Sometimes it is just cleanup, and there's a lot of data. We're doing some right now for a client that has, and I really am serious when I say this, They have 7 years of data that they have not entered into a system. They have 3 floors of boxes that they are literally going through one by one to be scanned and loaded into a system. So that's, there's a lot of different ways to go about helping these companies, and that's just one of them.
I bet the biggest feedback you hear, Mike, is probably gratitude, for making their job easier.
Yeah. When they recognize it, yes. It takes some time because they've been so kind of beaten over the head, with trying to find something for so long. And then once they start realizing that, oh my gosh, it's right here, I can see it now. Yes, gratitude is the right word.